with computer programmer Zara and the twins Hiro and Yuki, traveled to Japan in search of the next piece of Quentin Covington's mysterious blueprint. Disguised in video game character outfits, Kevin and his team snuck into Tokyo's underground battle robot scene in an unused part of the subway system. Once there, they hoped to get close to Quentin's lieutenant Q, who was also Quentin's son. Kevin and Zara designed a battle robot that smashed the competition, and because of their victory, they were attracting attention, some of which might be of an evil sort. Kevin and Zara were led through the crowd of BattleBot fans and competitors to a section cordoned off with velvet ropes. There, luxurious leather banquets and tables had been set up with monitors showing close-ups of the robot battle arena, and full bar service complete with smiling hostesses. Kevin and Zara were led to a table occupied by a single young man. Kevin instantly recognized him as the person they were searching for, Q. He had an obvious physical similarity to his father, Quentin Covington, but unlike many other people at the event, including Kevin and Zara, he didn't wear a costume or disguise. In fact, Q's clothes were almost as unassuming as Kevin's normal clothes were. "That was a hell of a fight you put up," he said as he invited Zara and Kevin to sit down with a wave of his hand. "I go by the name Q, by the way. And of course, I know you are the creator of the robot who took out Smasher. That's quite an unexpected accomplishment." Zara shifted uneasily, and Kevin knew that she was worried that Q had been warned by his father to be on the lookout for anyone matching Kevin's description. Kevin had already raided 3 of Quentin Covington's compounds and stolen away pieces of the master blueprint to Quentin's mysterious plan. But Kevin knew the costumes they wore as part of their disguise as competitors made them unrecognizable. "Thanks for inviting us to sit with you," Kevin said. "We're newcomers, and we don't know anybody else here yet." Q looked surprised. "But your robot was so good. I thought you must surely be veterans of the sport. Have you been competing in other cities?" Kevin smiled. "You could say that, in a way. Did you have a robot competing tonight?" Q shook his head. "No. I'm here in more of a recruitment capacity as part of my job." Zara looked confused. "I thought you had to have a bot in the battles to get admitted." Q shrugged. "Well, it's kind of different for me. I've sponsored teams in the past, so you could say I'm grandfathered in." Unlike his father, Q seemed much more modest and unassuming. Kevin liked him and hoped he wouldn't have to kill the young man. People weren't responsible for who their families were. Kevin knew that, if anyone did. And he could sense immediately that Q was ordinary. Kevin would not be able to use his levels when battling this opponent, though he could tell that despite Q's brilliant mind, he was no fighter. Toppling Q might not be all that big of a challenge. "What kind of business are you recruiting for?" Kevin tried to bring the conversation around to the real reason he and his team had come here tonight. "Let's not talk about boring work stuff tonight," Q said as he motioned to the hostess attending his table. Smiling, she stepped forward and poured Kevin and Zara glasses of sake. Zara only pretended to sip at hers, and Kevin nodded his approval. Anything could happen tonight, and it was best they both kept clear heads. "So, tell me what other cities you've been competing in," Q continued. "I know most cities can't sustain a competition like this one." Zara's eyes went wide. She and Kevin had no idea. This battle robot competition had been there first. What if Kevin gave a wrong answer? Would they get caught before they ever even got close to the next piece of the blueprint? Kevin opened his mouth to reply when suddenly, the enormous underground space began echoing with alarms and yells. Kevin heard somebody shout in Japanese, "It's a raid! It's a police raid! Everybody run!" Around them, people suddenly looked panicked, including Q. "I can't be caught here," he gasped. "My family's business is very important, but my residency status is very shaky. If I get into any kind of trouble at all, I could be kicked out of the country. My father would be so disappointed." And if the police kicked Q out of the country, Kevin might lose his only chance to get the next piece of the blueprint. "Don't worry. I'll make sure you get out of here." Kevin stood up and scanned the room. Already, people were running everywhere. Contestants had snatched up their robots and scrambled for the doors. There was so much confusion that several people got trampled. Kevin glanced at the hostess who had been attending their table. Kevin thought it was a pretty safe guess that the hostess knew her way around the space better than any of the attendees. She surely knew all the back entrances and exits. She was just disappearing behind a door concealed in the steel paneling of a nearby wall. "Come on," Kevin urged. He grabbed Q and yanked him to his feet. Kevin used his own body as a shield to protect Q and Zara as he fought against the flow of the crowd. Behind them, Tokyo police officers were already flooding the room, blowing whistles and aiming blows at any of the criminals who tried to run. Kevin yanked open the door the hostess had used and pushed Q and Zara through. The door led to a short access tunnel and another door that brought them to one of the many dark subway tunnels crisscrossing Tokyo's underground. "Thanks," Q said, sighing with relief. "You really saved my bacon there." Before Kevin could tell him it was nothing, the access door they had entered was suddenly thrown wide open. Police officers with flashlights started pouring through. "Don't thank me yet," Kevin said as he grabbed Q, and they ran further down the tunnel with Zara on their heels. But Kevin instantly knew he had a problem. In the gloom, Kevin could barely see his hand in front of his face, but as far as he could tell, the bare tunnel looked like a straight shot with no place to turn off and nowhere to hide. To make matters worse, Q was no more athletic than his overweight father. Q was already tired and tripped over his feet with every other step. Kevin could hear the police officers getting closer by the second. Kevin knew he could easily defeat the Tokyo police officers in a fight, even without using his level 7 powers against the ordinaries. But Kevin didn't want to hurt any of the officers. They were only doing their jobs, and the robot battles were part of an underground network of illegal betting and fighting. Kevin had to get them out of this main branch. Kevin reached out with his senses, seeking out the tiny sparks of life that had to be there. If there was one thing that was common to every subway system the world over, it was that there was always a rat around somewhere. There was one. The rat was just up ahead. Kevin honed in on the tiny creature, communicating with his mind. The rat understood what Kevin needed and directed him to a tiny maintenance store just ahead to the left. Kevin would have missed it in the shadows for sure. He sent a wave of gratitude to the rodent. Not wanting to give their location away, Kevin simply grabbed Q and Zara and swung them around to the door. Kevin eased it open and silently thanked the maintenance crews for keeping the hinges oiled and silent. He shoved Q and Zara inside and shut the door behind them. Hopefully, the police officers would miss the small door in the shadows. Kevin, Q, and Zara were in another access tunnel. This one was so narrow they had to walk single file. Now that they were out of sight of the pursuing officers, Zara turned on her phone and used the flashlight app to look around the space. "I can't believe you found this place, Kevin," she whispered. "I thought the police would get us for sure. You're amazing." "Totally," Q added. "How did you know this was here?" Kevin thought of his rodent friend and smiled. Call it an instinct. Now let's keep moving and see where this access tunnel takes us. They found out very quickly that it took them exactly nowhere. Less than a minute later, they were staring at a dead end. "Maybe we can wait here until the police stop looking for us," suggested Q hopefully. "I don't think we can rely on that," Zara said reluctantly. "I mean, once they realize we're not ahead of them, they'll retrace their steps and find that door." "I'm sure you're right." But Kevin's brilliant mind had already come up with another plan. The only problem was that he didn't want Q to witness what he was about to try, in case Quentin Covington had learned of his ability with animals and told his son about it. If so, Q would be sure to realize who Kevin was if he saw Kevin getting animals to do his bidding. Kevin wanted to minimize the risk as much as possible. Here, Kevin slid an unused packing case out from the wall and motioned Q and Zara behind it. "Hide behind this. Q, put your jacket over both your heads. It's dark enough that it will help camouflage you. Keep your heads down while I try something." Zara had a sense of what Kevin was planning and why he didn't want Q to see it. She nodded and got behind the crate, but Q didn't move. "But what about you?" Q asked for genuine concern. "Just trust me," Kevin told Q, holding his gaze. Q felt an instant sense of comfort and reassurance from Kevin's intelligence and decency. "Okay, I will." Q joined Zara. Once they were in position, Kevin reached out with his mind again. He instantly connected to his furry rat friend from earlier, but this time he needed to connect with more rats, a lot more, and fast. With his enhanced hearing, Kevin heard that the police officers had found the door and were cautiously approaching. Kevin put more power into his call to the rats. Soon they were pouring into the corridor, flooding in through ventilation ducts and climbing up through drainage grates. Kevin heard the police officers talking to each other in Japanese. "Did you hear that? What's that noise?" Kevin waited until the beams of their flashlights hit the mass of rats, which was still growing in number. "Oh my God, so many rats! That's disgusting!" one officer yelled. Kevin urged all the rats forward toward the officers. As one giant mass, thousands of rats leapt at the officers in a roiling, furious wave of furry bodies and naked tails. The officers screamed, dropped their flashlights, and ran away as fast as they could. The rats gleefully chased after them. Too often they had been attacked or killed by humans. They were happy to have a chance to get some of their own back now. Kevin waited until the last rat was out of sight and then went back to Zara and Q. Zara had kept a hand over Q's head to make sure he kept it down. She removed it, and they both joined Kevin. "I heard the noise and the yelling. Just what the hell did you do to those police officers?" Q asked with a smile. Kevin smiled back. Q wasn't perfect, but he seemed nice enough. Kevin hoped he wouldn't become an enemy. "Ask me again in a year and I'll tell you," Kevin offered. Q nodded. "A man of mystery. I can appreciate that. You have a deal. I'll tell you all about my business operation here, but on one condition." Zara and Kevin traded looks. "What now?" Q smiled wider. "You come back to my apartment for a nightcap." Kevin clapped Q on the back. "You've got a deal."